At some point, we have to stop fitting in and start being true to ourselves. There's some point that comes and we realize that we're not really happy with our lives and where we're at. And that's when we have to own our stuff and recognize that we have made the choices that brought us here. I'm not saying we chose into trauma. I'm not saying we chose into the extremely difficult stuff. What I am saying is that our responses and the way that we move forward from there are our choices. And that means that feeds into how we react to people in the future. So the way that you had an experience as a child, you turn around and as an adult, you have an altercation or a fight with your partner. And it's because it triggered emotion and fear and feelings from that previous experience. Basically, owning your stuff means that you'd stop in that moment where you're arguing with your partner and you say, why am I so upset?
Hey there, friends. Have you run out of clucks? I'm keeping this PG, but you know what I mean. Like, do you ever feel completely burned out or have times when your mind, body, and heart get out of sync? I know I do. And it's happening more often than it did in the past. As much as we like to blame everyone else for our issues, my guest today says you need to own your stuff. That's not exactly what she says, but I'm going to let her tell you how that idiom, that catchphrase goes. Krystal Jakosky of Colorado is a dynamic speaker, survivor, and educator who helps people find their voice. She coaches others to own who they are and feel free enough to let others do the same. I'm going to repeat that in case you missed it. Feel free enough to let others do the same. And I gotta admit, that sounds rather lovely.
You can't say Dr. Mo ain't tell ya that fear magnifies the consequences of failure. What are you scared of? Why are you afraid? I'd rather live like I'm dying than live to die. Any day, my heart is pure, my soul is safe.
Welcome to Perpetual Motion with Dr. Mo Anderson. I'm your host, Dr. Mo, best-selling author, award-winning podcast host, keynote speaker, and speaker coach. My goal for every episode is to elevate, educate, and motivate you. Joining me now is Krystal Jakosky, podcaster, teacher, and visionary. Welcome, Krystal.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mo. I'm excited to be here and to connect and chat with you today.
So we had a great pre-call. You are so fun and so knowledgeable. And I just really, really like what you're teaching. It's so important. Let's start with, what does it mean to own your stuff?
Yeah. You know, we are all raised in different ways. We have our parental units, we have school, we have any religion that was there, we have the community and the society that we live in and all of the expectations that are there. And oftentimes we move around, which means we're adjusting to additional communities. You know, we have to learn how to adjust to what's around and we have to learn how to fit in. The thing is that at some point, we have to stop fitting in and start being true to ourselves. There's some point that comes and we realize that we're not really happy with our lives and where we're at. And that's when we have to own our stuff and recognize that we have made the choices that brought us here. I'm not saying we chose into trauma. I'm not saying we chose into the extremely difficult stuff. What I am saying is that our responses and the way that we move forward from there are our choices. And that means that feeds into how we react to people in the future. So the way that you had an experience as a child, you turn around and as an adult, you have an altercation or a fight with your partner. And it's because it triggered emotion and fear and feelings from that previous experience. So I feel like I'm off on a tangent a little bit, but basically owning your stuff means that you'd stop in that moment where you're arguing with your partner and you say, why am I so upset? Why am I so angry? You recognize that there is underlying emotion. You recognize that the experience you had from the past is feeding into this right now, and you need to change that. You need to own your experience. Instead of lashing out at people because they're triggering you from your experiences, you recognize my experiences, my emotions, my thoughts are what feed into this whole experience. I don't like the experience. I want to change it. So I'm going to look at my choices that have brought me here.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. The thing is, for me, within that moment, it's hard to be that introspective when somebody's pushing your buttons and triggering you. And this is very fresh for me because we're in the midst of the holidays as we record this. And I had an incident recently. I have to say I was proud of myself that I was able to just kind of remain quiet and not feed into what was going on. But inside, I was really losing it. There was nothing mild or calm about it. And I was upset for days. So as you're owning your stuff, and I guess that was a way of reacting passively, because then I just walked away. But is there a way to, within that moment, to realize what's going on and how you're being triggered? Because that, I just was like, just put up a wall and really wasn't dealing with what was happening. I was just really angry, even though you couldn't tell from looking at me. So walk me through how you might do that. Because I talk to friends and I know I'm not the only one, because you get so professional that you know not to lose your stuff, but how do you own it within that moment?
Right. You put on that mask and say, okay, I'm not going to let him know I'm ticked off. Here's my tip for you. On an emotional scale of 1 to 10, 10 being off the charts, yelling, screaming, fire coming out of your head, and 1, you are as calm and peaceful as possible. If you're above a 3, the issue is with you, not the other person. The upset that you are experiencing in that moment is coming from behind. It's coming from other experiences. It is feeding into, which means that if I've gone above a 3, I need to stop and say, why am I above a 3? If your partner is above a 3, then you can say, I see you're really passionate about this and you're really upset, and maybe we should take a moment and breathe and come back to it. The thing is that this comes down to communication, right? It comes down to, because in the beginning, it's really hard for us to go, oh, I'm above a 3. I don't care that I'm above 3. I'm really pissed off.
Right, exactly.
I just want to go. Once you start looking, once you start pausing and seeing it, then it gets easier to. It's like going to the gym and building a muscle. Sometimes we need to work that out and have that communication and vocabulary with our partners. Because when I first started doing this with my partner, I could look at him and say exactly that. Hey, I see you're really passionate and upset about this. Can we revisit it later? And it would give him pause. He'd get a little frustrated that I was calling him out, and he would want to dive into it even more. And I would be able to put my own walls up because I don't have to take on his stuff, right?
Right.
He has his and I have mine, and I don't have to allow that to continue. And in the same aspect, in the reverse, he would say the same to me, only he would literally say, you're above a 3.
But he was trying. He was trying.
Right? He was using the words and the trick that I have taught people to help me. And I would say, I am. Okay, why? The more that you do it, the more that you dive into it, the more that you see it, the easier it is and the quicker the answers come to you, right? The first few times you're going to be really frustrated and you're not really going to want to look back at what feeds into that fear, what feeds into that anger, what feeds into that moment. It's going to be a little bit difficult. But as time goes on and you do it more often, you can sit there and say, oh, I got it. This is feeding into the fact that I always had to do the dishes after dinner and I would get in trouble if they weren't all completely done. So having one dish on the counter absolutely drives me nuts, because back then I would get in trouble, and it's frustrating that you're not getting in trouble because you don't do the dishes. Right. So evidently I need to deal with the fact that I am scared and frustrated and have emotional baggage. And I would appreciate you being understanding of the fact that I'm struggling. And then we can work together so that it's less of a contention and more of an understanding and compassion between the two of us.
Got it. You just made me think of something interesting with my sons, my 2 sons, when they were younger, and we are long past this. They're in their 30s with, kids, and I got grandkids and stuff. But And it is related. It was me with insisting they make the bed every day, not only make it, but make it a certain way. And we had so many arguments about that ridiculous thing. And my bed isn't made right now because I'm so far removed from that, because I didn't have time this morning. I had stuff to do. But growing up, that was a thing in my household. And I get in trouble if it wasn't made. And I just carried that into, my raising children. And it just really doesn't matter. I've even seen research that people do better who don't make their bed every day. There's not as many germs that it has to air out and all kinds of stuff. But, and that's not so much an argument because they would just do what I said, but the attitudes and the, just pulling up the comforter, but the sheet was done. And the time we wasted on that and a dinner ritual and so many other things, you just like this whole light bulb went off. So many other things that I was putting on them simply because they were traditions and put on me. And okay.
So that's what feeds into you. So you just brought it all right to home, because the whole concept is that if you own your stuff, if you are more self-aware, you are less upset about other people because you now recognize that this is my stuff and they're going to have their own stuff, and you're going to be less triggered and upset by them, and you are going to allow them to be themselves as well. It spreads this open acceptance of where we're at, instead of you need to shift and change to fit the mold that I believe we're all supposed to be in.
Right.
It's no, you know what? I recognize the mold that I was in or am in is not the mold I want to be in. And that's probably going on for you too. And that has to extend to our parents, right? Mm-hmm. If we want the freedom and the ability to claim that we're really good parents, we kind of have to look at our parents and say, oh, you know what? You thought you were a good parent too, because you were adjusting from your parents, from their parents, from their parents. Like there is this new understanding and this new gentleness that we can give to each other, recognizing that we're all doing the best that we can to create lives that are wonderful and fantastic. And where is room for judgment in that? Why can't we just love each other?
Right. That part. And from generation to generation, as we have new experiences and new information and new studies, my mom was the Dr. Spock model of raising kids. And I had, with the internet, so many other resources and moving around, so many other friends. And that helped me a lot to see that, there are a lot of different ways you can parent, and then you have to be sensitive to the needs of your children. But what you say with your partner, I want to revisit that, because I guess we're talking about limiting beliefs and things we inherit from, our parents and the dynamics of our relationships. Within that moment, though, it sounds like your partner, I know at first he was probably frustrated because a lot of people feel like, no, I want to talk about it now. This is going on right now, and we got to deal with this right now. And I find it so much better to have that cooling off period. But if you're dealing with someone who's just going on and they won't let you have that pause, have that room, tell me a strategy to deal with that.
It's funny because I became the master. He was the teacher initially. My parents fought, and so I learned to fight. My first husband's parents fought, so they learned to fight. And when I started dating my now husband, one night we were talking about how I was dealing with something, and he very calmly said, "I'm getting really upset right now, so I think I'm going to leave, and we'll chat about this tomorrow." And he left my house, and I was like, who the heck are you to leave in the middle of an argument? We are supposed to be fighting this out. We are supposed to be like arguing until one of us wins whatever is being fought over. And he didn't do that. He left, which then I'm sitting there like, what just happened? Because he didn't raise his voice. I had no clue that he was upset in any way, shape, or form. I just knew that he disagreed with what I was saying and doing. So that was the first time that I learned, and it was very much demonstrated to me, that you can walk away from an argument. And the next day we came together and we talked about it, and it resolved. We were able to come to an understanding. And calmly, without any yelling, without any punches, without anything. It was just, and I don't mean physical punches. I just
Of
mean verbal
course.
punches going back and
Mhm.
forth. It was so different. So we've now been married almost 12 years. And it's funny because now something will come up and he will be frustrated and he will start going at, verbalizing and trying to talk about this. And I will say, I see you're really upset. And I think we should come at this later. And I will leave the room and he will follow me around the house trying to continue talking about this. And I finally turn around and I don't respond because at that point I have acknowledged that whatever he is upset about is not me. It is not something I have done. It is not with me, or it is or my job to fix it. It is literally
Yes.
his job to acknowledge the upset and deal with it. So from that point on, I do not engage. I acknowledge that he's upset. I do not engage. He follows me around and then I stop and I turn around and I look at it and I say, you are really upset. I need space so that we can breathe and come back at this. If you want to continue, then we will be fighting and yelling and probably saying things that we don't want to say to each other because they will be hurtful. Like I literally spell it out. Do you want to continue coming at me this way because we'll have an issue, or would you like to take a break? And when he looks at it that way, when it comes back to literally like kindergarten, oh, yeah, I got it. And then he'll give me a break and he'll go and he'll come back later. And it might be 20 minutes later. It might be the next day when he comes back and says, you know what? You were absolutely right. I was upset about this that happened, not you and what was going on. So now let's talk about you and I and how our relationship is instead of that. So once you recognize whether it's you or the other person, you have to take that break and you have to set that boundary. You have to say, I'm not going to take that on because we do not deserve it from other people. If they are above a 3, this is a fortress, baby. I'm not allowing you to come at me. I do not need your arrows and your swords and all of that stuff. And I do not need to have a shield that is still physically battering me. I have a brick wall there. I'm not going to take on your anger, but that's a boundary that I have to hold, right? I have to say I am worth more than that. And I am not going to allow you to tear me down in your upset and your frustration. It's that person on the road, you're driving down and you need to merge over and somebody does not want to let you in. And as you finally pass, they like give you the finger and they're showing all these darts at you. And you're like, okay, you're upset, but I'm not going to continue driving like a maniac because I don't have to take on the darts that you were just sending at me.
Right.
We have the ability to put ourselves higher on the value perspective, the spectrum. We have the ability to acknowledge our own issues, our own challenges, say that's okay. I love myself anyway. And because I love myself and I'm going to own my stuff, we can expect other people to own theirs too.
That's good. That's good. To your analogy of the car with the road rage person too, it's interesting that especially now that everybody's just a little bit, anxious and worried about, who's got a weapon or who knows who's going to do what. That's interesting to me that say in that situation or in the office or with strangers, some people can control themselves because I don't want to be hurt. And I don't want to hurt that person. If I drive up on their bumper, if I start waving at them, trying to get off the road. But then when they get with a significant other, they can't seem to be able to do that. And why is that? What is that about that the people you're closest to, you don't want to own your stuff? You don't want to control yourself. What happens there?
It's a safe space.
Wow.
Our loved ones are absolutely safe spaces, so we can let most of our guard down and we can just be really who we are. So when you're at work, you have to have a mask on and you have to act the way that they need you to be at work, and you're doing your job and you have put your best foot forward. But when it comes to home, you get to take your shoes off.
Right.
You get to get comfortable. That also means that you are vulnerable. So that means that our loved ones can unintentionally or sadly intentionally on occasion push our buttons. It means that because we are relaxed, we are more open to criticism or perceived criticism. And it also means that we might tend to be more critical of other people because they are a safe space. My kids, when I went through my divorce, my kids were lashing out at me all the time. And I went to counselor after counselor to try to understand it. And I finally found one that I absolutely loved. And we worked really, really well together. And he said to me, you have to understand that your home is a safe space for them to allow the anger out, for them to allow the fear and the upset to come out. It's not that they're angry at you. It's that they have had all of this other external influence going on in their lives. And when they come home, they know that it's safe to blow up and then come back to a safe, calm space. When we are out at work, we have had our walls up and people have been attacking our walls. Like there's so many examples going through my head, and we just don't have all the time in the world to go over those examples, but we're out in the world. We are being attacked. We are trying to protect ourselves. We are dealing with every single thing, from the boss to the road rage to harassment to just everything. Maybe we ate something and digestively we're not feeling good. We come home, and where did you release all of that upset? Where did you take a moment to let go of all of the darts that had been thrown at you all day long? There's a story about this man who lived with his family out in the country, right? And he went to work every day, and he'd walk out the front door and he would touch the leaves of this tree, and then he would get into his car and he would go to work. And when he came home, he would touch the leaves of the tree, and then he would go in and be with his family. And one night he brought his boss home with him, and his boss watched him touch the leaves of the tree and then go into the house. And then when they came back out of the house and he had to take his boss home, his boss asked him, "Why did you do that?" And he said, "I want to put all of my cares in the world on this tree so that when I go into my home, I am clear and able to connect with my family. And when I leave my house, then I pick those cares of the world back up before I go so that I can deal with it." But he always got rid and let it go. What do we do to let go of all of that crap that has come out at us in the world before we turn and work with our family?
That's a beautiful story.
Yeah, we carry it home.
We do.
We carry it home. We take it into them. They deal with it. If we had a really crappy day, our boss yelled at us, we failed a deadline, we dropped coffee all over ourselves, whatever it was, and then we come home and we're irritable because our day sucked. Our family is the one that suffers from it.
Right.
Because we didn't take a moment to recognize, where am I at? What do I need to do so that I can walk through that door and let go? We treat those who are closest to us the worst because they are the safe space that we can let go. They do not deserve it. And the only way to change that, radical self-awareness and owning our stuff so that we can shift that narrative, so that we can change it and be more kind and loving to our partners.
Very nice. That's going to bring a lot of peace and comfort to people who learn to use the strategies that we're talking about here. And just, remember how important your family is to you, that's a meaningful, personal, deep relationship. And that is not the place to, be destructive. Yeah. And that's something we got into and we can get out of. Let's go to another end of this spectrum or this arc and talk about beating burnout. How do we beat and avoid burnout? Because I'm seeing so much of that within my circle and just nationally now that we can hear everybody's feelings on social media. and it's somewhat alarming because that goes into our mental health and that also impacts our family.
Yeah. Burnout is huge. I talk to people, and a lot of people believe that it's something that more women deal with because of the family and the expectations that are on women, just as that generalization. And I disagree with that. I think every single human being on this planet deals with burnout in one way or another. Some of us are
Agreed.
more vocal about it and share about it, and some of us really suffer in silence and fail to speak up saying, I'm having this problem.
Mhm.
Burnout really comes about because we are giving too much and not paying attention. Each and every one of us is a finite resource. That again, you are a finite resource. There is only so much of you to go around, you and your energy. The most valuable thing in this life is not time, it is energy. It is not money, it is energy. Energy is what leads to burnout. Your phone needs to be plugged in, or it's not going to work.
Right.
Your car needs gas, or it needs to be plugged in, or it's not going to work. They have to recharge if they do not function. You are the exact same thing. Burnout comes about because you have failed to pay attention to your own needs and met them. Now, this feeds into your four bodies. Okay. You have a spiritual body, which is your connection to your higher power. You have a mental body, which is all of the thoughts that you think throughout the day. You have your physical body, which is how you experience the world around you. And then you have an emotional body, which is literally the emotions that you are feeling. And your emotions let you know when something's wrong. Okay. When I talk about burnout, I talk about all four of these bodies and burnout, because you can burn out any which way. Physically, if you burn out, you may have twisted an ankle or broken a leg or had some large physical medical thing that takes you down. You may get the flu or COVID or something else that really takes you out for a little while because physically you literally need a break and your body has told you, we're not doing anymore. Mentally, you can burn out, right? You are working, you are going, you are doing, you are thinking, you are helping all the time. And then suddenly you can't think anymore and you're not clear and you can't remember. Well, you pushed too hard. Emotionally, when you burn out, it is literally you have emotional breakdowns. And spiritually, when you burn out, it is you've lost that connection to your spiritual power. And I need to bring all these in and explain them to you, because when you experience burnout, the first thing is recognizing that in one of these four bodies, you have burned out, because each body affects the other body. Each body will help drain or encourage and boost the other ones, right? Mentally, you can think positively about your body, which is going to boost you up and give you more energy. And then your emotions are happier and whatnot, right? So the first thing to burnout is recognizing that you've already drained one of your resources completely to the point there is nothing left. That finite resource is nil. It is gone.
And I think everybody knows that feeling too. I got nothing left, nothing to give.
I got nothing to give. Mentally, physically, emotionally, whatever it is, I got nothing to give. So when I talk about burnout, recognize that you have burned out and then tune in which one of your bodies has hit the wall. And then what can you do to fix that? What can you give yourself? Do you need some healthy food? Do you need some time to meditate and break away from the world? Do you need a nap so that your brain can regenerate? Do you need a vacation where you're not looking at your phone and dealing with work all the time? What do you need emotionally to help refuel what's no longer available to you? Your emotions let you know when something's wrong. Your emotions are so powerful and beautiful because they're like the alarm bells. They're like the sentinels on your castle wall saying, oh, mayday, something's coming in. We got to deal with this. And if you keep ignoring them and you keep stomping them down, think about stress. They say, oh, it's just stress. It's just stress. Don't worry about it. Stress can kill. Stress can lead to heart attacks and hypotension and all sorts, like the medical things that it brings about. You're under stress. It leads to emotion. Your body is telling you, you're burning out. The key to avoiding burnout is checking in regularly. How am I doing? Where am I at? And what need do I need to feel? So it comes back to that self-awareness and the self-care required to fill all of those needs. And self-care is not pedicures and bubble baths. Pedicures are not facials and whatnot. Self-care is any conscious and intentional act that you have decided to take in order to meet your own needs. Again, conscious and intentional. If I'm going to go get a pedicure and I'm sitting there in that chair and the whole time I am thinking, ugh, I need to be doing this. I should be doing that. I'm falling behind on this. Or if I'm on my phone working on emails and whatnot, how is that self-care? How did I fill my cup? I was draining it faster than I was filling it. If, however, I consciously set the intention, I'm going to get a pedicure and I'm going to give myself this time so that I can feel better. Then at the end of that, I don't feel bad that I didn't work. I don't feel bad that I didn't get all these other things done because I consciously chose to fill my own cup, which meant that I am consciously choosing to put myself higher on the priority list and avoid burnout. I'm not going to get that far because I chose to give myself something. That's reading a book. That's anything. And the other thing about self-care is it varies for every single one of us. I tell people, I want you to go write a list about all of the things that bring you joy. Everything that brings you joy. And the next time you do it, instead of doing it mindlessly, I want you to stop and set the intention, I'm doing this to fill my cup. Because now you've taken it from an unconscious, I'm just doing this kind of thing to oh yeah, I'm filling my cup. I'm plugging in for a little while, and you will be amazed at how much self-care you actually do
Mm-hmm.
and how much you are filling your cup all the time. I have a girlfriend who loves to garden, and she doesn't look at it as self-care. She's out there and she'll tell me about how she's pulled all these tomatoes and she's going to make this great zucchini thing and whatever for dinner and whatnot. and I'm like, that is so cool. Right. And then I was like, so what did you do for self-care this week? And she's like, oh, nothing. I worked in the garden. I did this and I did that. And I said, is working in the garden a joy or a burden? And she said, well, it's a joy. I love to do it. And I said, so can you switch that intention from it's taken a lot of my time to look at how much time I get to give to myself. Right. Look at the gift that's there. And once she started shifting that, once she started looking at it in a new light, she realized, okay, gardening actually is self-care.
It energizes me. Yeah.
Yeah. Chopping vegetables so that I can eat healthy, delicious food is self-care. Somebody else, it might be pottery. Somebody might be sanding. Somebody might be running. It is so unique and individual to each and every one of us. And it shifts. One day it may be this and one day it may be coffee and tea with a friend. And another day it may be that you just need quiet alone time. Right? So recognizing all of the things that we do to fuel our cups, to beat that burnout, right?
Right.
Means that we have this huge plethora of activities that we can draw from to fill our cup, feel better, and then be able to give that energy out to other people who also need it. Bless other people's lives, because our lives are so blessed and so full with our own choices to take care of ourselves that now, hey, yeah, sure. You need some help? I totally got you.
Right.
I'm right there.
And you don't feel like a martyr. That's where a lot of people get caught up. You're not full, and the little bit you have, you're giving to everybody else. It's not an overflowing cup, it's a leaking cup. And that becomes a problem. That is one of I've been doing this 10 years. I guess we've been talking about self-care 3 or 4. And that is quite the best definition that I've heard. I think people have gotten to thinking is pampering and luxury and just plug it in whenever I can, but conscious and intentional just really brings it home for me. And I can even think of things that I do that I have, like your gardener thought of it as work. And I was being productive, but it was also pouring into myself and making me happy. When I leave there, mind, body, and spirit, I feel good about my activities like writing. I love writing. I can go on and on and on all day. Don't have to talk to anybody. Me and my curse and my PC, and I'm Gucci. And yes, I'm getting something done, but it really does help me a lot. So thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And bringing the mind, body, and spirit, all those areas into alignment, and understanding how critical that is to the people around you. You mentioned journaling in our meditation. I'm sorry, you mentioned meditation in our final, minutes here. I'd like for you to talk a little bit about misconceptions of meditation and benefits of meditation.
I love this subject. I love every one of them. They're just also, I'm passionate about them. Meditation is a lot like self-care. Meditation does not have to be the lotus pose. You do not have to sit quietly for an extended period of time. Meditation, my definition of meditation, is anything that lets you tune out the world and tune into yourself. Tune out the world and tune into yourself. So that means that instead of thinking of all the things, I'm going to pause for a moment. Now, just like self-care, meditation could be that you're sanding wood because you have a rhythm and you're paying attention to your breathing and you're in that moment. You have let everything fall away. Not all of us have the ability to sit in lotus pose. It drives us absolutely nuts. We just don't have, right?
I don't have the flexibility either. So.
Right. I don't care if you stand on your head. I don't care if you're laying down on the ground or running or walking through a labyrinth or whatever that is. But meditation is another one of those things that is so unbelievably independent. It is again, unique for every single one of us. What brings you peace? Writing can be a meditation for you. Because you are there, the world has gone away, and you're just sinking in to the moment. You are present in the here and the now. I'm not saying that lotus pose is wrong. I am not saying that sitting quietly, transcendental meditation is wrong. What I am saying is it might be the wrong one for you right now, because it's not for everyone. It may be right now, 5 minutes sitting in a darkened bathroom is exactly what you need. It might be that 5 minutes or an hour on a drive on Sunday, taking in the beautiful scenery that is there, is exactly what you need. Meditation, what lets the world fall away so that you can tune into you. It is as simple, literally, it is as simple as one slow, deep breath when you recognize that you're going over a 3. I'm going to let it go. I'm going to ask if I'm okay and what I need to do. It's that simple. Every one of us can meditate. Every one of us has the ability to. It's just a matter of redefining it. Maybe the word meditation stresses you out and you just don't like it, right? So rename it. Maybe it's just peaceful sitting. Maybe it's, I'm just going to be for a little while, or I'm going to, whatever that word is that works for you, rename it. I love journaling. It is a huge thing in my life. I have a million different journals, but I don't like the word journal because somebody read mine when I was a kid and I got in trouble for what I wrote in there. So I don't like to journal. I renamed it. Now, every one of them is my musings, and I muse all.
Your musings? Is that what you said? Your musings. Yes. Lovely.
Yeah. So I have a ton of different musings. I have a ton of different books and ways that I muse, and I just let it go and let it flow. But I had to rename it from journaling to musing. So rename meditation. What works for you? I'm going to go let the world fall away. I'm going to go tune in to me. I'm going to have 5 minutes peace. Whatever that works for you and however that works for you, as long as it's a moment that you are intentionally, it's back to that conscious intentional, right? Intentionally tuning into the moment and what's there, your heartbeat, your breath, the space that you're in. Let everything else go.
Nice way to bring it full circle. You brought us back to that below a 3, intentional consciousness. And what's really resonating with me is that You need to think about what's triggering you, what soothes you, what brings you joy, and own your stuff. Start with that. Own your stuff, because none of this happens until you do that.
Yeah. You cannot have somebody else give you joy. When somebody says, I need to find joy, I've lost joy, da, 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 you can't get it from outside. You cannot get self-care from outside. You cannot get meditation from outside. Every bit of this is internal. When you are above a 3, it's inside. What do you need? And how can you meet that need so that you can live a better life, so that you can be more at peace, so that you can enjoy what is before you? Every one of us needs to step back and step in to our truth, step into our reality, and be as authentic as we can possibly be, recognizing that we all have flaws.
Yes.
We all have challenges.
Yes.
And that's okay. We are all also trying to live our best lives.
Yeah, I'd like to say, please be patient with me. God is not through with me yet. I am a work in progress. So this has been delightful, I'm sure, after hearing all these great strategies, tips, definitions. Some people have just reframed their whole day. At least I know I have. And I'd love for them to know, our listeners, how to get in touch with you, how to find you online, offline. Tell us your website and how to find you on social media, Krystal.
Yeah, I am at Krystal Jakosky on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. My website is krystaljakosky.com, and I have online courses and in-person courses and individual classes. And I also have a podcast, Breathe In, Breathe Out, with Krystal Jakosky, that has guided meditations and all sorts of just wonderful insights. So feel free to reach out. And even if I'm not the one that ends up guiding you on your journey and helping you get more in tune with your inner person, your higher self and true you, I really hope that your listeners choose in and find someone who really does click with them so that they can start turning the ship around.
Outstanding. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And wasn't that a great program? Oh, love that episode. I enjoyed it. I hope you did too. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share. Learn more about me on my website, drmoanderson.com. That's MOE. You can read book excerpts, watch videos, learn about my services that I offer, and book me for a speaking engagement. I'd love to talk with your group, and I'd love to work with you. So until the next time, review, renew, and re-you. Thank you.